As World War II drew to a close, the world stood on the brink of a new era. Yet, for the soldiers advancing through the war-torn landscapes of Europe, the nightmare was far from over. The villages they entered were little more than shattered shells, homes reduced to rubble, streets haunted by smoke and silence. These men, hardened by years of relentless battle, believed they had seen the very worst of human conflict, but nothing could prepare them for what they would soon encounter. With measured steps, American troops moved through the ruins, their faces set in grim determination. The air was thick with the scent of ash and loss. Behind every broken wall, behind every battered door, the possibility of danger lingered. But on this day, what they found was not an enemy with a rifle, but a truth so terrible it would shake the conscience of the world. In the shadow of a forgotten shed, a heavy wooden door creaked open. Inside, the soldiers were met with a silence so profound it seemed to swallow the sound of their own breathing. Their eyes adjusted to the dim light, and there, huddled in the darkness, were the survivors. Gaunt figures, little more than skin stretched over bone, stared back at their liberators, eyes sunken, cheeks hollow. Their bodies bore witness to unimaginable suffering. The soldiers, men who had faced death on countless battlefields, now stood transfixed by a horror that transcended war. One soldier, voice trembling with disbelief, could only whisper, "Dear God, they're just bones." The weight of what they saw pressed down on every heart in the room. These were not enemy combatants. These were civilians, children, families, people whose only crime had been their existence. As the soldiers moved deeper into the heart of occupied Europe, the pattern repeated itself. Each liberated camp revealed new depths of cruelty. The names would become etched into history: Majdanek, Auschwitz, Dachau, places conceived not as fortresses or military outposts, but as factories of death. The liberators, many still young men, came face to face with the machinery of genocide. Rows upon rows of bodies, mass graves, piles of discarded shoes and spectacles, each item a silent testament to a life extinguished. Among the liberators was General Dwight D. Eisenhower. A man forged by the fires of war, even he found himself unmoored by the scale of the atrocity. He walked the grounds of the camps, his hands clenched, his eyes heavy with sorrow. Eisenhower understood immediately: the world must bear witness. He summoned journalists, photographers, and politicians, insisting that every detail be recorded. The visual evidence and verbal testimony, he later said, were so overwhelming, it left me sick. He foresaw a time when the truth might be denied, and he was determined that no one could ever claim it didn't happen. The survivors, those fragile souls who had endured years of torment, emerged from their barracks with tentative hope. Some crawled, too weak to stand, reaching out to the unfamiliar uniforms of their liberators. In that moment, the boundaries between soldier and civilian dissolved. Weapons were set aside. Tears flowed freely, of grief, of relief, of disbelief that rescue had finally come. Some survivors fell to their knees, clutching at the boots of the Americans, as if afraid that this salvation might vanish like a dream. One survivor, voice raw with emotion, asked, "Are you Americans?" The answer, simple yet profound, was met with sobs of gratitude. "Yes, you're free now." The liberators, overwhelmed by the suffering before them, responded with gestures of kindness. A piece of chocolate, a soft blanket, a gentle touch. These small acts became lifelines to those who had been abandoned by the world. A soldier knelt to offer a chocolate bar to a young boy who clung to it as if it were the key to life itself. In these moments, hope flickered anew. The ranks of the liberators were as diverse as the nation they represented. African-American soldiers, Japanese-American soldiers, men who had faced prejudice and discrimination in their own homeland, now stood as angels of mercy. They lifted survivors in their arms, carried them from the shadows, and tended to their wounds. In the face of humanity's darkest hour, those who had once been marginalized became healers, restoring dignity where hatred had sought to erase it. Liberation was not a single event, but a process, a fragile, uncertain awakening after years of darkness. As dawn broke over the camps, survivors and soldiers alike gazed toward the rising sun. The landscape was scarred, the wounds deep, but the promise of a new day lingered in the air. The soldiers who had borne witness would carry the weight of these memories for the rest of their lives. They had seen the unthinkable, and in doing so, became custodians of the truth. Their testimony would echo through the generations. They were not just soldiers. They were witnesses. They were healers. They were the first to see, to touch, to comfort, and to remember. Through their courage, the world was forced to confront the reality of the Holocaust. Through their compassion, a measure of humanity was restored. In the end, the power of liberation was not merely in the breaking of chains or the opening of gates. It was in the recognition of shared humanity, in the simple acts of kindness that defied the machinery of hate. It was in the insistence that these horrors must never be forgotten, that the memory of the lost must be honored, and that the lessons of the past must guide the future. The power of liberation, the power of humanity. These are the legacies of the first witnesses, those who saw, who remembered, and who ensured that the world would never again turn away from the truth.